For the man who wants to be the governor of South Carolina for another 4 years, that is Henry McMaster. And as you can hear behind me, Wolf, the crowd is very fired up. We have about a couple thousand people in this room so far. They are letting the press corps here know exactly how they feel about what we're doing here, Wolf. I can't hear you anymore. What's that?
Tell the truth, Jim.
I will. You got it. I will.
A few years later.
I got a question, though. Where are the ICE raids at the Trump properties?
Yes.
Can somebody call ICE on the Trump golf course in Virginia?
Yes.
You're telling me there's nobody in there that is undocumented or has some kind of squirreliness going on with their paperwork? Give me a break. Hey, how many immigrants has he married? He's got one buried at his golf course in New Jersey.
What the
Isn't she buried by the first hole or the second tee or something like that?
The first hole, yeah, it's the first hole.
Immigrants always doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do.
He's
Isn't that what
definitely
it is?
not
Oh
going
my
to get.
God. How do you respond to that?
That's embarrassing and it's disgusting. I mean, they hate him so much they just can't help themselves, which is why they're going to continue to lose. I'm kind of like, okay with it. Say that. Put it on a microphone. Air it everywhere.
I agree.
Every YouTube channel.
with you.
On X, you play that way because all it's going to do is to bring more independents and more former Democrats into the Republican Party tent.
Yep.
And we need them. And we need them.
Boy. So we got to talk about more outrage from some mainstream liberal media so-called journalists who are very upset with CBS settling a lawsuit that was brought against them by President Trump, okay, because President Trump accused them of deceitfully editing an interview that they did with Kamala Harris to make Kamala Harris sound coherent. And CBS, instead of deciding to fight against this and to go through the discovery process and to prove their innocence, they say, you know what? We're just going to settle it, okay? They're going to pay at least $16 million, maybe upwards of $30 million to the president's library, okay, as a way to kind of make this go away, right? And what's so hilarious about this is the fact that President Trump has gotten win after win after win when it comes to these lawsuits against the mainstream liberal media. And these so-called journalists are really upset with this, right? They are fed up with the fact that President Trump continues to win with these lawsuits and that these liberal media outlets continue to bend the knee to President Trump. So I want to go ahead and play news clips so you guys can get a better understanding, just the full overview of the president's wins, right, and how these outlets continue to bend the knee. And then we're going to get into some reactions because they're pretty hilarious.
Tonight, a $16 million settlement. Paramount, the parent company of CBS, announcing it will pay President Trump's legal fees and give money to his future presidential library. The president sued CBS over this interview with Vice President Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes during last year's presidential campaign.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
The suit accusing the show of manipulating the editing in Harris's favor, a claim CBS News denied. In June, 60 Minutes anchor Scott Pelley was asked what effect a settlement and apology would have.
Will be very damaging to CBS, to Paramount, to the reputation of those companies.
Paramount is not issuing an apology, but says it has agreed to release written transcripts of future 60 Minutes interviews with presidential candidates. The Trump legal team calling the settlement another win for the American people, holding the media accountable for their wrongdoing and deceit. The announcement comes as Paramount is looking to merge with Skydance Media, a deal worth $8 billion. It has been stuck, waiting for FCC approval for nearly a year. Paramount previously saying the lawsuit is unrelated to the Skydance merger and the FCC approval process. Following a string of lawsuits this year, media companies and social media platforms have reached settlements with the president worth more than $60 million. In January, ABC News agreed to pay $15 million over on-air comments made by George Stephanopoulos. The terms similar to CBS, though in that case, ABC News did issue a statement of regret. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, New York.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. President Trump is picking up W after W after W against the mainstream liberal media with these lawsuits. And, the liberal media, so-called journalists, don't like it. Like, for example, Brian Selter, who was fired from CNN, but for whatever reason, CNN rehired the guy, even though he's a talentless hack, but they rehired him. And he went on multiple shows to express his dissatisfaction with CBS settling this lawsuit with President Trump. Take a look.
CBS did nothing wrong here, but its parent company is paying the price anyway because of President Trump's highly unusual litigation strategy. This is now a playbook of sorts for the president because he won a settlement from Disney's ABC last December, also a settlement from Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, and now a settlement from Paramount Global. The interesting and unusual wrinkle here with Paramount, the parent of CBS, is that Paramount is trying to merge with a company called Skydance. And in order to merge, it needs Trump administration approval. That has led to widespread speculation that Paramount was willing to cut this settlement deal, in fact, eager to cut this deal, in order to get the Trump administration to bless the merger. Some Democratic lawmakers have used the word bribe to describe this. And one CBS correspondent said to me on condition of anonymity, everyone at 60 Minutes believes this is an act of extortion by the president. But let me show you the new statement we have from Trump's legal team, the way he is portraying this as a victory this morning, because I think it's really telling, Kate. Here's the statement obtained by CNN. Quote, with this record settlement, President Trump delivers another win for the American people as he, once again, holds the fake news media accountable for their wrongdoing and deceit. CBS and Paramount Global realized the strength of this historic case and had no choice but to settle. President Trump will always ensure that no one gets away with lying to the American people. So that statement is exactly why CBS News journalists did not want the parent company to settle. That statement is exactly what 60 Minutes correspondent feared would happen. Trump coming out and claiming victory, even though he actually had a very weak case. Legal experts told CNN it was frivolous and ridiculous. They said that CBS could easily win in court if it had chosen to go that route.
So, Brian, this is not the first major media company to settle with President Trump. You've been following this, though. Did anything in this settlement or its terms surprise you?
Well, CBS did not actually do anything wrong here. CBS engaged in standard television news editing practices, but its parent company paid the price anyway, with some people likening this to a ransom or even a bribe. The terms are not surprising because, as you said, Paramount's not the first company to do this. Disney's ABC, in some ways, wrote the playbook that Paramount is now relying on because last December, when Trump was still president-elect, ABC settled with Trump out of court to the tune of $16 million. So here we are again with $16 million heading toward Trump's presidential library. The big difference in this case is that Paramount is trying to get a merger approved by the Trump administration. And that is why the word bribe has come up, with Democratic senators wondering if this was a bribe to try to get the Trump administration to approve the deal. Paramount says no, Trump's FCC says no, but a lot of outside analysts believe that is the case.
Brian, I want to underscore this point you're making, that it is standard journalistic practice to edit interviews for length, for clarity, for a number of editorial reasons. Is it clear that Paramount would have lost this suit if they'd continued to fight?
To the contrary, Paramount likely would have prevailed.
Yeah, so they keep claiming that Paramount would have prevailed and that this is all about a merger. But yet, that to me doesn't explain why all of these companies are doing this, right? At some point, one of these companies is going to choose to fight, right? They're going to choose to stand their ground and say, you know what, we're going to stand on principle. But yet, I don't think that they're standing on so-called principle because they're wrong. Like, for example, George Stephanopoulos was clearly wrong when he claimed that the president was found civilly liable of rape, right? I mean, that was just false, right? Just false, okay? But yet he continued to say it over and over and over again because he wanted to send a message to his audience that President Trump is a rapist, right? He was falsely accusing the president of rape as a so-called journalist, okay? So we got to talk about another Trump deranged journalist, Jim Acosta, who is still fired from CNN, right? He lost his job. This guy is so Trump deranged that he is hosting Jim Jones-like cult rallies against Trump. Take a look.
It may feel like we are surrounded in darkness right now. There's no question about it. It's been hard to get through. We're only, 100 and some odd days in. But I think what you just heard here from these gentlemen up here, from Tara, from Aaron, from Miles, is that there's still a lot of light left in all of us. And it would mean something to me if you carry that message with you as we leave this theater here tonight, that this is not a country that is being plunged into darkness. This is a country that can find its way back to the light. And keep watching us in independent media. We're going to give you the truth, no matter what that guy down the street thinks about it. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so it should be no surprise that this guy, who is hosting Jim Jones-like rallies, right? At some point, these people are going to do something super crazy to protest against President Trump. They're going to be led down a very, very, very dark path when it comes to a Trump derangement. Yeah, it should be no surprise that he is losing his mind over CBS deciding to settle this lawsuit. Take a look.
Paramount said its payment includes Mr. Trump's legal fees and costs, and that the money minus the legal fees will be paid to Trump's future presidential library. I mean, that in and of itself, and this is me interjecting here, not reading the article anymore, should have come across as a bright red, lava red warning sign to Paramount to not pay this ransom, to not pay this bribe. And yet they paid it anyway. They did exactly what ABC did, exactly what Disney did in settling their bullshit lawsuit. They paid millions of dollars to the Trump Presidential Library, which, by the way, has anybody thought this through? What is that presidential library going to be like? Are they going to have the January 6th wing of the Trump Presidential Library where they reenact the attack on the Capitol on January? I mean, think about are they going to have an alligator Alcatraz wing of the Trump Presidential Library? I mean, it's a crock of shit. And so to Paramount, what you have done is just, in bending the knee to Donald Trump, is you have encouraged the bad behavior to continue. He is obviously going to file, and the CBS lawsuit, the lawsuit against CBS and 60 Minutes, was complete horseshit. And all you have done, Paramount, is encourage Donald Trump to do this again. He's going to do this to yet another major news organization in this country. As long as there is a giant company that owns a news organization, and that giant company has business before the administration, and this is according to the New York Times. Sherry Redstone, the chair and controlling shareholder of Paramount, told her board that she favored exploring a settlement with Trump. Some executives at the company viewed the president's lawsuit as a potential hurdle to completing a multi-billion-dollar sale of the company to the Hollywood studio Skydance, which requires the Trump administration's approval. And so anytime you have one of these situations where a major media company that owns a prominent news organization wants to push through one of its media deals and has to get the blessing and the sign off of the Trump administration, Donald Trump is going to put that company over a barrel.
Yeah, and this is why I think it would be hilarious if this merger did not go through, right? If the Trump administration denied this merger, it would be absolutely hilarious, because all these people have egg on their face claiming that, well, they only settled for the merger, right? Which, who knows? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Okay, but Paramount, the executives there had issues with 60 Minutes and their biased coverage before President Trump sued them, right? This was a problem before the lawsuit. So I'm not necessarily buying into this idea that it's done just to fold to Trump in order to try to get this merger done. I just think that the reputation of that program is being damaged by the far left bias, right, that they claim doesn't exist, but clearly it does. And I think Jim Acosta is a example of exactly what I'm talking about, right? I mean, this guy used to work for CNN, but look how Trump deranged he is right now, okay? Like, for example, he is now peddling far left conspiracy theories about how Stephen Miller and President Trump will rig the midterms, right? This is what he's peddling on his platform.
Do you worry about vote tampering in the midterms? Do you worry about Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and some of these types monkeying around with the midterms and the way we do elections in this country? I mean, with what they're trying to pull these days, they don't want accountability. They don't want Democrats getting the gavels in the House and the Senate, be able to hold hearings and start impeachment proceedings and so on. I mean, you worry about that, James?
In a short word, yes. in the longer words, very. Okay. And I don't put anything past him. Nothing. To try to call the election off, to do anything you can. He can think of things like that we can't, because we're not accustomed to thinking like that. We always assume there's going to be an election. In your case, how do I cover the election? In my case, how do I affect the election? And we don't think about it. This is a whole new thing. People come to me all the time and say, James, I'm really scared. I said, you should be. You have every reason to be scared.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself.
This is scary shit.
That's really scary. Yeah, really scary.
Yeah. And he's already tried to steal one election before. So, I mean, what's to say he's not going to try to steal more?
This will even be more, because he's seeing this coming. He's going to see this coming. And he's going to try to think of something to extricate himself.
Yeah. So again, the hypocrisy here is stunning. It really is. These are the same people who get so upset, so mad about President Trump and his claims about the 2020 election, right? They're now doing the same thing that they claim upsets them so much, right? The same thing that they claim is such a threat to democracy. They're engaging in that right now by suggesting that the president is going to rig the midterms, right? Because who knows? I think that it is likely that Democrats will lose as of right now, right? I know some people may disagree with me on that, but I really do think that the Democrat Party is in such bad shape that they could lose the midterms. I mean, it's almost a certainty that they're going to lose the Senate. The House, again, is up for grabs, but we're going to see. Regardless, leftists are already putting out conspiracies that the president's going to steal the midterms, that he's going to rig the election. But again, I thought that was a threat to democracy. I thought you couldn't question the outcome of elections, right? Every election is 100% free and fair, and you just got to accept it. Except when Democrats lose. When Democrats lose, now all of a sudden it's okay to question the outcome of elections, right? All of a sudden, Jim Acosta in this rhetoric is not a threat to democracy, right? It's funny how that works. But I guess my point is this. It is no surprise to me that these outlets continue to get sued, because these so-called journalists are just propagandists and they become liabilities. Look what happened to Terry Moran, right? Of ABC. This guy put out some unhinged tweet against the president, clearly showing that he's biased. But yet they claim, oh, well, I'm not biased. We call it straight down the middle. Really? You call it straight down the middle? Why is it that every single one of these individuals, when they eventually get fired and they go independent, they all become far left activists? Why is it that every single last one of them become far left activists? None of these people are centrists when they leave, right? None of them. They all come out the closet and say, yeah, they're far left. Jim Acosta, far left. Don Lemon, far left. Joy Reid, far left. Tiffany Cross, far left. All of them. Every single last one of these far leftists, they get fired. When they go independent, they're far left. So who am I to believe that when they were on CNN or on these mainstream liberal media outlets, that they were actually really acting as journalists? That their political viewpoints weren't getting in the way of their so-called journalism, right? Of course it was. And again, that's why these individuals get fired, and this is why they're liabilities. Because of what you just heard right there, right? So again, it's just funny to me because they get criticized for their lack of journalism, for their obvious bias, but then they'll claim, no, we're not biased. That's just a conspiracy theory. But every single time one of these individuals get fired, they all become far left activists. Again, why is that? Why they become anti-Trump activists? If you have that much Trump hatred, right? If you're showing me you have this much Trump hatred, now that you're not at CNN anymore, who am I to believe that that wasn't getting in the way of your coverage when you actually were on CNN? Of course it was. Of course it was. So, you know, it's just hilarious to me how these people continue to rage over President Trump racking up W's. And I think the president's going to continue to rack up W's. If these mainstream media outlets felt like they could actually win versus the president, then they would move forward with lawsuits, right? But the fact they're all settling should tell you everything you need to know. That maybe, just maybe, they don't think they can win. Just saying, right? Just saying. That's what it looks like to me. Okay, it looks like these outlets are guilty, right? This is why they're settling instead of fighting it out, right? If you know, they will win for sure, which is what these people claim. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.